Tonight, Leo Maxwell's peaceful life is shattered by Suzanne Coington's relentless campaign for uniformity. Petty HOA warnings over his xeriscape native garden turn into personal attacks, sabotage of his car, and finally a late-night break-in caught on crystal-clear cameras. It's a tale of bias, bureaucracy, and how one man's quiet resolve and irrefutable video evidence topple a false accuser. If you love stories like this, like and subscribe for more. The house was unnaturally still. Only the refrigerator's low drone and the steady tick of the mantel clock, Eleanor's favorite, filled the rooms. After she died, the clock's rhythm felt cruel, mocking time's unrelenting march. But then silence became worse than noise, so I wound it again. Now its heartbeat comforts me, reminding me this home still lives. On the dining table, under the soft lampglow, lay a single sheet, the police report. Event the Dico, April 23, 9117. Incident, burglary of a motor vehicle. Suspect, Suzanne Coington. Victim, Leo Maxwell, me. I'd read it a dozen times. It was clinical, emotionless, failing to convey the fury in her performance or the weight in my chest as I stood accused on my own driveway. It ignored the most surreal moment, watching my HOA queen escorted to a patrol car, her expression frozen in disbelief. This battle began not with threats, but with a cream-colored card slipped into my screen door handle 2 months after Suzanne and her husband Robert arrived across the street. The HOA Architectural Control Committee, comprised solely of Suzanne, found my unkempt foliage violated the aesthetic bylaws. Her complaint targeted the xeriscape garden Eleanor and I had crafted. Purple coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, red sage, and waving native grasses. It was Eleanor's masterpiece, an ecological protest against the neighborhood's chemical-drenched, water-guzzling lawns. After her passing, tending it was my therapy, the most living memory of her I could touch. Her notice felt like a personal violation. I had felt her judgment in every glance from her picture window and in her clipped good mornings as she collected her mail. One afternoon, she suggested, a lawn service could clear that wild mess in an afternoon, as if I didn't know the difference between manicured grass and a living habitat for bees. I explained that Eleanor designed it to be this way. She merely blinked, nodded once, and warned about property values, her mantra, her justification for control. I went inside, consulted the bylaws on my computer, and found a subsection praising native landscaping and xeriscaping for conservation. I printed, highlighted the exemption, and delivered a polite note explaining the garden's purpose. I assumed decorum and the rules would settle the matter. I was naive. Within a week, another notice arrived. My garden's stone border was uneven. The bylaws didn't mention edging, but Suzanne threatened fines of $50 a week until corrected. I replied formally, demanded a full HOA hearing. Suzanne denied the request, citing simple compliance. Her letter carried the tone of a general dismissing a private's plea. Undeterred, I sent a certified packet to the entire board. Every violation, every response, every photo, proof of her pattern of harassment. This time the board, 5 longtime residents, called a hearing. Suzanne could no longer control the venue or narrative. In the cramped community clubhouse, I laid out my case with the precision of a technical writer, pictures of wildflowers, the xeriscape bylaw, a timeline of her notices. My closing plea was simple. I want peace. I want to enjoy the home and garden my wife created, as the rules allow. When Suzanne spoke, she raged about numerous complaints and my hostile attitude. Her voice trembled with indignation, but her arguments were circular and emotional. Arthur, a gentleman in his 70s, leaned forward. Eleanor Maxwell was a treasure, he said. Her garden is her legacy, and it follows our rules. The board voted unanimously to dismiss all violations. Suzanne sat defeated, her face the color of drained chalk. Relief washed over me, but it was brief. Weeks later, a plain sheet of paper appeared under my windshield wiper. This is a residential area, not an auto repair yard. No signature, no HOA letterhead, just her thin handwriting. Then one afternoon I returned from work to find a small oil puddle under my vintage sedan. The drain plug was deliberately loosened, just enough to trickle oil, a deniable act of sabotage. I thought of what might have happened if I'd driven off. This was no longer petty, it was dangerous. That night I ordered security cameras, one for the porch, another trained on the driveway. I felt a pang of sorrow installing them, my sanctuary reduced to a surveillance zone. But I needed proof if her aggression escalated. Months of paranoia followed. Every rustle in the yard jangled my nerves. My home felt like a fortress under siege. My work suffered. I was haunted by the thought of what Suzanne might do next. Anger simmered, but I held it in, knowing any outburst would confirm her worst narrative. The true climax arrived on a Tuesday around 10 p.m. I'd been out with friends, laughing, forgetting my troubles for a few hours. Pulling into the driveway, I noticed the dome light on my red sedan glowing inside the dark. The driver's door stood ajar. Fear and anger collided in my chest. As I approached, the security light flicked on, and there she was, Suzanne, burrowing through the glove compartment. Time slowed. I stepped into the beam and said calmly, "Get out of my car." She squealed, bolted upright, and spun to face me. "I was just closing the door," she shrieked. "I live here," I replied evenly. "So what are you doing inside my vehicle?" She stammered, eyes darting for an excuse, then blurted, "I was worried it was unlocked. It's a safety risk." Her absurd rationale was transparent. She whipped out her cell and punched 911. "Please hurry, he's threatening me," she wailed. She assumed the terrified white woman script would work again, but I remained still, arms folded, knowing what she didn't. My cameras had captured every second in stunning high definition. The patrol cars arrived in minutes, lights flashing down the street. Neighbors peered from windows. Suzanne rushed to the first officer, reenacting her panic. "He lunged at me, I was just helping." Her story stumbled under questioning. The pair of officers turned to me. "Sir, what happened here?" I spoke softly. "I found Miss Coington inside my unlocked car, rifling through my personal items." She gasped, eyes wide, then pounded on the passenger door. "He's lying." The younger female officer asked, "You said you were walking your dog." Suzanne froze. "He ran home," she muttered. The inconsistencies piled up. The senior officer looked at me. "Any evidence?" I pointed to the camera over the garage. "Yes, sir. We record on motion. You can see the whole incident." Their interest shifted instantly. We moved inside. I tapped the security app on my tablet. The timestamp read 10 minutes earlier. On the screen, Suzanne strode up my driveway, hesitated, and slipped into the car. In grainy night vision, her hands rummaged through insurance cards, a tire gauge, and then my late wife's leather journal. My breath caught. She flipped pages as if searching for something to use against me. We watched the rest. My arrival, the confrontation, her dialing 911. No room for doubt. When the footage ended, only the clocks ticking broke the silence. The female officer's voice was crisp. "Ma'am, your account doesn't match the recording." Her mask of composure shattered. She began to stammer about doctored video. The male officer replied, "This is a standard cloud-based system. Live feed and archive. You can't fake it." He asked her again why she invaded my car. She sank into the couch, eyes hollow. In moments, the officers read her rights and snapped on cuffs. Robert, summoned by one of them, stood stunned as his wife sat cuffed in my living room. Across the street, curious neighbors watched in silence as Suzanne Coington, HOA president, was led to a police cruiser. I pressed charges, burglary of a motor vehicle and filing a false police report. With video so clear there was no defense, she eventually pleaded to trespassing and making a false report, received probation, fines, anger management, and a restraining order. The HOA board demanded her resignation. The neighborhood that once hung on her every word now crossed the street to avoid her. In 2 months, her for sale sign went up. I saw her once more as she directed movers in her front yard. Our eyes met briefly. No anger flashed between us, only exhaustion. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by her own hubris. Now the street is quiet in a different way. A new family will move in soon. I hope they love butterflies. I still glance at my cameras with a pang of sadness, aware of how fragile peace can be. I won, but the battle cost me my carefree evenings. Eleanor's journals are back on the shelf. I sit by the clock's steady ticking, reading her words of hope and dreams. I weep not for the fight, but for the peace she forged here, a peace worth every fight. If you'd like more stories like this, please like and subscribe.